I have to my left a stack of books that you have to read. I don't care if you have a never-ending TBR, you have to read all of these because they are my favorite books ever, and I'm gonna go into them. Also, lies, they're not my favorite books ever. They are just a random combination of books I just love and want to talk about. I have so many more, probably double or maybe triple the amount that I could talk about for ages and recommend and want everyone to read. So I might do another video if there are more books for me to talk about. But I just thought this would be really fun because I love talking about books that I love. So starting off, on the top of the stack, we have Clockwork Angel. Now, this is the first book in the Infernal Devices series, but I'm recommending you this series or trilogy as a whole. I think this trilogy completely masters fantasy romance. Like, there is no tomorrow. I read The Mortal Instruments, which is a super popular series by Cassandra Clare, the same author, when I was in high school, and I remember my mom yelling at me for not getting out of bed for a whole day. So 1, that is a testament to the power of her writing. 2, I read 3 books. So The Infernal Devices is a trilogy. This is book 1. There are 3 in 2 days on vacation last summer. And all I want is to be back on that beach reading these books. Nothing has made me feel like these 3 books. Honestly, I've read so much fantasy, not in a bragging way. I've just tried a lot of different flavors of it, and this completely gets it right. The fact that it's YA boggles my mind because I thought I was super mature now and loved adult fantasy, but this just proves that the right writing can make anything good and feel super mature and adult. And I need you to read it. It's so good. The love triangle in this book, in this series, I will think about for the rest of my life because I don't know who I would pick and I don't know how she picked. And I don't want to spoil anything about the end, but you have to read it. You have to start understanding what everyone in the book community is talking about when they say that this woman, Cassandra, knows how to write fantasy romance. And yeah, that's my rant. Please read it. I'm awful with synopsises, but basically, very weird evil man making very weird dead people come back alive through like clockwork, the gears and stuff in their bodies, and that's bad because he wants to like raise a dead army basically. And there's these shadow hunters who fight off evil. The shadow hunters are more popular from the Shadow Hunter series, The Mortal Instruments, but this is Shadowhunter as well. This is set actually before The Mortal Instruments in London, so it's so perfect for fall also, so you have no excuse not to read it right now. Switching up gears, next I have The Yellowbird Sings by Jennifer Rosner, and this was the randomest, loveliest book I read. I was in an airport and I had finished all the books I brought with me physically to read on my vacation. I was flying back home from somewhere and I just went into the airport bookshop. This was on sale and I hadn't read a historical fiction in a really long time. So I decided to pick it up and I'm so glad I did. I almost cried on the flight. Honestly, this changed my world. This is the first historical fiction I've read that I've loved. And that is saying a lot. I take that statement back. I loved The Book Thief so much. It made me sob. But this is also really good. This takes place during World War II, and it's about a little girl and her mom and how they're separated and how they basically just have to survive, and they live in Ukraine. So I thought this was a really lovely book after, you know, everything that's been going on in Ukraine and with Russia. It just made my eyes and mind expand a bit more, and after reading this, I was really inspired to research a bit more and understand what's going on. And it just, the characters stay with you so strongly in your heart. I felt so much pain for them, but also so much hope and love. That was such a beautiful thing about it, is that so much suffering is going on and happened during World War II, obviously. It's just reading books like this makes you realize that at the end of the day, they were still human and had to keep hope alive and make the most out of the tiny bit of happy moments they did have. And it was just so painful but beautiful to read about that. Oh my god, no one talks about this book enough. The Boys Club by Erica Katz. To set the scene, this book takes place in New York City at a top law firm when our main character, don't know her name, read this book like 4 years ago, gets into this super target law firm out of school. and she's choosing what team to join. And basically M&A, mergers and acquisitions, is like the top team. They work the most, they make the most money, and it's completely male dominated because it's so kind of iffy, and there's a lot of corruption within that team, and kind of how they win deals and how things go, and like the things they do outside of work hours are just not like ethical or in compliance. And basically outside of that, the men are all just super sexist as well in law firms and in that team specifically, so no woman joins, but our main girl does, and then shit goes down. It makes such a good message about being a woman in the workforce, in corporate life, especially law firms, but also as someone who just works in business in general. I related so much to it, and I was still reading this when I was in school. I wasn't even working yet, and it just, wow, it really changed my life. I loved how the plot was moving so fast. I loved that she was a bit corrupt too, and it showed insight into how easy it is to fall into the trap and the mold that the corporate life has set up for us, and then we're a part of the problem too without even realizing. And it's fiction, it's amazing, read it. The controversial book, Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I loved this, and I read Love in Other Words before this, okay? So Love in Other Words, book by Christina Lauren, is the biggest comparison this book ever gets, and I see it. It honestly is a very, very similar plot, okay? Get it. I still loved this. I ate this up. I ate it in one sitting. I read it in one sitting. I adored the characters. My heart was breaking at every different page, every different twist, every different flashback, and I just loved it. I read it at the end of summer when it came out last year, and I think her writing style was super, super captivating. I am also Canadian, so I honestly really, really liked reading finally about something that's set in Canada. Every romance, every fantasy is set in London or in America. Like, I just want some representation. But I really, really enjoyed this book. I think there are some flaws in the plot. I think the big reveal kind of made me mad, but I think that means it was good writing. Like, if you're actually emotionally invested in a book and then a decision pisses you off, I think it just means you were so rooted and so into the book that it got a reaction out of you. That's my opinion. I really liked this. I even annotated it a tiny bit, and I read her most recent book, which came out this summer, Meet Me at the Lake, and I just really like this. I would recommend it to anyone. I read it in one sitting, and immediately it went on my phenomenal list on Goodreads, so what more do you need? Oh my god, this book, Know My Name by Chanel Miller. Now, this is a book every single person has to read. Everyone. This changed my life, and I know I've been saying that a lot, but it's because I'm talking about the best books, okay? So I'm just really happy and want you to read these books. This is a memoir by Chanel Miller, who was a victim in the huge Stanford case where she was sexually assaulted and more bad things, words that I don't want to say on YouTube to get demonetized, by a man who was an athlete. I don't even remember what team he was on at the school, but basically he got a awful sentence, like way unjustified. It should have been so much longer. And reading how this one event in her life, huge event, but this one event affects every relationship she has, every job she ever takes, every day of her life, was just so powerful and sad, but then also inspiring of what she kind of made of it and turned it around. And she was forced to make something terrible be okay in the end, and I think she did. It just read it. Then we have I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. I actually listened to this primarily on Audible instead of reading the physical copy because she actually is the voice, like is the person speaking in the audiobook, and it's so powerful to listen to in her voice because it's her story and it's a memoir, and it was incredible. I wasn't a huge iCarly fan when I was growing up. I did watch it though, and I knew her, and I remember like Sam and Cat a little bit, which is the other show she was a star in. And reading this book really opened my mind to the dark side of Hollywood. I think we really romanticize celebrities and being one, and I just think reading memoirs like this makes you realize how much darkness there is in it. And it was so powerful because she overcame a lot in her life, and her very abusive relationship with her mother, I mean, it's called I'm Glad My Mom Died, was just so wild to hear the justification in her thoughts, like her inner monologue when everything was happening to her, justifying the actions her mom was taking and thinking that that was someone loving her, is so wild. And I think a lot of people will listen to this and take a lot out of that. And Hopefully no one relates to it, but I think sadly a lot of people will, and it's just such a crazy thing to listen to that story from an outside perspective. Also, she writes so beautifully. I think it gets straight to the point. There's no like fluff in it, which I love. You're getting right to the juice and the meat of the story, and I loved it. Then we have, wow, I don't have that many fictions in a row, but then we have The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest. This book really impacted me in a way I needed at a time I needed. I've already recommended it to a few friends, and one did pick it up and she didn't finish it, and I completely get why. I will preface by saying I think this book will impact you most if you read it at the right time, when you're ready to listen to it. I think this self-help book is one of the few that I still remember the things I read in it, and I still apply the lessons I've learned from it. One of my favorite quotes, and I'm just gonna leave it at this, was that your feelings are like a drain, and it gets clogged with the sadness and anger sometimes when you're going through a breakup or a tough time or an episode like that. It's really hard to let yourself genuinely unclog the drain, because you don't want to be sitting in your bed crying and feeling those things, right? You try and push it away, stay busy, ignore it, or you just like lull and you don't know what to do. But she kind of outlines the importance of unclogging that drain. If you ever want to make room for the happy feelings to come through and the loving feelings, you can't have all the bad stuff like blocking the drain. You need to let the bad stuff out so that the good stuff can also go through the drain and make you feel your feelings. And I didn't explain it nearly as well as she does in the book, but that's just one of the things that I have taken away from this and still apply every day. So highly recommend it. It is a bit tough love, I will say, if you're someone who's a bit more sensitive and can't have someone like telling you, you can fix this, you just have to apply yourself. Like, yes, it's okay that you're sad, but there's ways to go about this. If you need someone to just kind of coddle you and be a bit nicer about it, I don't know if this writing style will work for you, but it really works for me. Oh, this book. Then we have Happy Place by Emily Henry. Emily Henry just knows how to write romance. It is a fact. The men she writes are the men I want in my life, and the women she writes are actually great, not perfect women who all have their own sense of direction and purpose. And I really love that the relationships she writes, I find, are two people finding each other and not compromising their personality to be together. I think they still are able to completely be themselves and find a way to live together and have a happy relationship while keeping all of their individuality, but just growing together. So it's very realistic, and I really like it. The smut scenes are great. I think the side characters are always super fun in her books. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. She doesn't lose her individuality, which I loved. Oh my gosh. Normal People. This is probably my favorite book ever. I actually took my grad photo with this book. I was holding a pink drink because I do have one every single day. Oh, this one looks a little nasty. And Normal People, I have read it now 3 times, I believe. I've watched the show too many times. Wow. Sally Rooney, wow. I will be honest, I don't adore all of her other books, but this one just gets me going. This is a good book. I recommend everyone read it. And I'm sorry that there are no quotation marks. Well, I'm not sorry, because I like it that way. I think it's quirky and fun. And if you don't like that, read the audiobook, because it's such a good book. I just think everyone can take so much away from this. It's basically miscommunication in a book. That entire trope is this book, but there's so much more to it. Obviously, I like playing on that meme, because I know this book is super controversial. You either love it or you think it's super stupid and pointless, but I love it. And the last book I have on here, Carrie SoDo is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. She is great. Taylor Jenkins Reid knows how to write a book. I have read so many by her and love them. Honestly, all. I don't think there's a single book by her I haven't enjoyed. This one I recently read and has stuck with me because now I care about tennis, and I never did before this book. I think she does such a fantastic job in writing a romance and a fiction and kind of a very fast-paced, it's not mystery, but something big is gonna happen, and you're really flipping through the pages trying to get to the end to find out what's gonna happen and how. So that's not a mystery because you're not unraveling a mystery, but there's just a big plot line for tennis in this book. What words am I saying right now? Anyway, I think the father-daughter relationship in this was so beautiful to read about. I love how she always has cameos of characters from her other books as well. So Carrie SoDo I knew from another book she'd written, and then when I read this, I was like, oh, I'm finally reading about Carrie SoDo. And you know what? I loved Carrie. Carrie was not perfect. Carrie at sometimes was kind of a bad person, but that's a harsh statement. Not a bad person, just she had some questionable actions, questionable thoughts, and that's okay. I loved reading about it because we're all human and have that side to us. And overall, I was rooting for her so much in all the bad she did too. I was like, yeah, I kind of get it, Carrie. Like, you had to do that. And it's beautiful. You will be entranced in this world, in the Carrie SoDo world, be rooting for everyone she's rooting for, and just fall in love with this book. Those are just some of the books that I absolutely adore. I really hope you read at least some of them, or if you have read them, I hope you love them too. I think books are so magical and connect a lot of people, and just there's nothing quite like being in my bed reading a book and forgetting the world exists and having my noise canceling headphones on and a curated playlist from Spotify and not replying to anyone for hours and cuddling my cat and drinking a pink drink and maybe eating some banana bread. You know, it's just like that's peak of life. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.